What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today for pickups video from the National. Made 4 purchases of singles, bought a couple boxes of wax, sold a decent chunk of stuff, and that really kind of loosened me up. I joked about this in one of the videos, one of the days. The first 2 days of the show, I really hadn't done anything. Then that first trade night, I sold about $1,500 in singles. Just laid out some cards, sold a ton of stuff. And then the next day, sold about another $2,200 to a repacker. And that just really freed me up. For whatever reason, it's just mental. I don't know what it is. I walked in with a budget of about $3,000 to spend, and I hadn't spent any of it. And then I sold $3,500 worth of stuff, and then I was immediately Leonardo DiCaprio in the gif of him throwing out the fun tickets out the window when he's just like spreading cash everywhere. And I immediately went on a buying spree. Now, part of that was, I'd been in the room for a day and a half, had kind of got a feel for things, had seen some things that I liked, was debating back and forth on some stuff. So let's talk about what I didn't buy first. 2 things really caught my eye, and I kind of hinted at these in the recap video and in mentioning it on social and stuff like that. The first one was RBI Crew had a Ryan Reynolds X-Men auto. It's one that I need. It's one that I'm missing. I have the Hugh Jackman auto already. It's the worst possible week ever to try to buy that card. They had it listed at $3,500, which in my mind felt high. But given the hype, I could kind of get it. The last few had sold for around $2,000. They were all raw. This was a PSA 9 with, I believe, a 10 auto. They had a sticker for $3,500. It was there for the first 2-3 days of the show. Friday afternoon rolled around. I rolled past the booth. I didn't see it in the case anymore. I asked. They said it sold for $3,000. So even though sometimes the comps just don't matter, even though there was comps out there, they weren't on a PSA 9, to be fair. They were on raw, and that card could be really busted up raw for sure. So I did not go after that one. That one was a long shot because I knew it was a bad time to be buying it, but I was intrigued by the card because it was something that I needed. The other one that caught my eye, which I had a feeling this was going to be in the building because I know the dealer that had it. I've bought from them before. Robert Downey Jr. 2008 Rittenhouse auto. It's the one that matches my Favreau that I have back there. There's an unmasked version of that where he's basically Tony Stark, and there's another one, him in the Iron Man outfit. I prefer the unmasked. That's the one he had. It was in an authentic PSA 10 auto case. Those cards are notorious for chipping around the edges, but other than that, the card was in decent enough shape. Auto was nice and clean. $8,000. Very fair asking number. Those cards are extremely rare, do not sell very often. At one point in time went for over $10,000. The last comp was a CGC 7 with a 10 auto. Went for $5,500 in May. I'm not gonna lie, I wish I would have saw that. I would have been really tempted by it. So we talk. He's like, my best is 7. And I was like, ugh. I could have afforded the 7 if I really wanted to make it happen. I could have made it happen. But that would have really blown out the budget for pretty much the rest of the year. I have Fanatics Fest coming and a bunch of other nonsense. New York Comic Con, all sorts of stuff. So it was like, do I want to grab this and completely wreck my collectibles budget for the rest of the year? I'd already gotten the X-Men 1. That X-Men 1 is way more important to me than this card, so I have no regrets over buying that at all. So I went back and forth on it. I could have got it to $6,000, I would have pulled the trigger without hesitation. If I could have got him to 6, I would have pulled the trigger. Same thing. I don't remember if this was Thursday or Friday late in the day. I went and looked at the card a couple different times. It kind of run through the numbers. One of the advantages of being local is I have easy access to get more cash because my own local bank is right here. So if I needed money, I could easily get it. I was also debating on like, what did I have at home that I could potentially sell to offset some of it. Kept going back and forth, back and forth. I just did not feel comfortable with the 7K number, which is, all well and good. Went back one of the afternoons and it was gone. And I said, did it sell? And he went, yeah. It sold for 7,500. So once again, sometimes the comps do not always matter. And little did I know 2 days later it would be announced as Dr. Doom at San Diego Comic-Con. So I'm sure that card probably just got a little bit of extra juice on it. So I don't regret the Ryan Reynolds at all. I was never going to get to that card at that number. It was just a card that I was intrigued by. And then the Robert Downey Jr. would have been awesome to bring home. That is a absolute grail of a really pop culture card, period. I was going to say Marvel card, but just pop culture card. So let's talk about what I actually got. And I think the other thing that kind of freed me up is that RDJ got snagged up, because then I was kind of like, okay, like, I'm not going after this. We're good here. I could go ahead and move on and make other decisions on stuff. First play that I made was to pick up, well, actually, I don't remember what the order was on these now that I think about this. But I think this was first. I went to RBI Crew. I think I've bought off RBI Crew at every single national now. Something. They always have, one, a very good selection of pop culture stuff. They had a Kevin Costner auto that I was looking at pretty hard throughout the week. They also have a ton of wrestling autos. Now, I don't talk wrestling cards, almost always never, on the channel, but I do have a small wrestling card PC. I don't watch the modern stuff at all. I like the Attitude Era, and I like the 80s and 90s, because I watched it growing up, and then I watched it hardcore during the Attitude Era, and then that was pretty much about it. So in the past, as like I said, I've showed these on mail days. I have an HBK auto that I picked up. I think I got this last year. The signature moves with him doing the sweet chin music. One of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I got this last year from RBI Crew. This is the Stone Cold Steve Austin Immaculate. It was all about the image for me. When I saw this card come out, I knew I had to have it. Stone Cold has a ton of autos. This was the one that I wanted because of the image. And then I think I picked this one up on eBay for the cheap. The Bushwhackers dual auto on card. I love the Bushwhackers as a kid. If you grew up in the 80s, everyone loved the Bushwhackers. So I snagged that one. And I really like the dual autos on the wrestling cards. So this year, I had saw a Hitman auto. And I don't have a Hitman auto. And I wasn't like, I was always HBK, not Hitman, whenever they would wrestle. But I always respected the Hitman. You know what I mean? Even though I wasn't rooting for him when he went against HBK, and that was the big rivalry, you always respected how good he was and how much he meant to the WWF. And I wanted an auto of him. And they had the nicknames auto, which is out of 25. It's a little shorter print. You could get autos cheaper than this. RBI Crew had this. So I picked this one up. And I packaged this with another card, which whenever I find one card at a dealer table, I like to try to find do they have anything else that I'm interested in, just to potentially give me a little bit more, I don't want to say leverage, but a little bit more power in negotiating. If I'm buying multiple cards, the dealer is going to be more willing to work with me. So snag this. And then they had another card, and it was an on-card dual auto, priced very fairly. This was stickered at $11.50. The last comp was $11.50. These two wrestlers, from the way that I understand it, quick research, do not have a lot of dual autos and have very few, other than maybe this card, on-card dual autos. The last comp on this card was $11.50. Prior to that, it was in the $1,200 and $1,300 range. Dual sticker autos of these two were in the $1,200 to $1,300 range. This card, the signatures looked absolutely fantastic. Really two absolutely iconic wrestlers. And you could not ask for a better dual auto. Like I said, this one was stickered at $11.50. This was stickered at $375. These do about $350-ish, give or take. So it was a fair sticker. RBI Crew usually prices their stuff really, really good. That's why I almost always go to their tables first when they're set up at shows. So I packaged this and this together for think I got them both for $13.50. So I got about $125 off sticker, give or take. So Undertaker, Kane, on card duel, gorgeous autos. This is numbered out of 25. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous autos, especially the Undertaker auto looks great. Kane auto looks great. Great images used on both of those. Super excited to kind of just lock this one away for just an iconic dual autograph when it comes to Attitude Era. And I mean, Taker goes all the way back to the 80s, 90s. Obviously, Kane is a little bit more modern than that, but just a really great card. Super excited to add this one and add this to my small but yet growing wrestling PC. I still need a Hogan at some point in time. He has a bunch of them out there. I got to find one that speaks to me. I would like a Triple H at some point in time. And then I'm not sure where else. You know, I kind of want to dig into more of those 80s, 90s guys. I don't want to go crazy. It's not something I like going on eBay. I almost kind of like the every year at the National add a new one to the collection, because this is now 2 or 3 years in a row that I've gotten one at the National. So we locked that deal in with RBI Crew. Next deal. I was walking the show floor. I was seeing some Star Wars autos. My list of things that I need from Star Wars Stellar, big time ones, is very small, if next to non-existent. I need Hamill. I need Carrie Fisher of the big ones, whether it's Stellar or not. Hamill and Fisher only have sticker autos in Stellar. They're only in 1 year. They rarely come up. I'm not a fan of sticker autos. So I start thinking, how can I get a Hamill auto or a Fisher auto on card that would fit into, you know, my Star Wars auto collection, which is probably the largest PC card-wise that I have right now outside of Cleveland stuff. So I'm walking the show floor. I see some of the 77 Topps Hamill in-person signatures. He did a signing recently. He has not done a signing event in forever. He did a signing event recently. I'm sure he'll do more, but there's so much demand for his autographs. I'm not super concerned about it. And a lot of people sent in the 77 Topps card. I saw there was probably about, and I'm not saying I saw every one, but there was at least 4 in the room. And I think there was even more than that. One seller had like 4 of them, but the pen that they used was a thinner Sharpie pen. It streaked a little bit. And the other thing that they did is when they graded them at PSA, one was Beckett and then two or three were PSA. They did trading card authentic auto. And you know how the trading card label gets a ton of hate. So I didn't really like the idea of that. Another dealer had one that was, you know, the 77 Topps authentic auto PSA 10. Card presented really well, had some rough corners, but was pretty centered, no creases, nothing crazy. For a little bit more. They were at $2,200 on that one. The other ones were at about $1,600 to $1,800 depending on the condition. So I walked over to the dealer. This was Friday morning. Saw the one at $2,200. Looked at it. Was like, okay. Walked over. I said, let me go double check the other ones just to be sure. Walk over, double check the other ones. In between there, I run into a repack buyer that I know. I offload the Stroud Silver and the Julio Rodriguez first Bowman Refractor. Get over $2,000 in cash for both those. I think I netted out $2,200-ish on those two, which was about 85%. I basically sold for about 85 to maybe 87%, pretty close. Go back over to the dealer. As I'm approaching the table, I just hear the tail end of a conversation, and I don't know what card they're looking at. I hear the guy say to the dealer, all right, let me think about it. I just need to walk around a little bit. I just need like less than an hour. I just need to decide if I want to spend that much or not on something or something to that effect. So that guy kind of slides to the side. And like I said, I had no idea what card they were looking at. I walk up. He got tied up with something else for a second. He turned to me. I said, hey, can I see the Hamill Skywalker again? And I look at it just to double check. And he had a sticker for $2,200. These cards basically comp for $2,000, maybe $1,900, $1,975, but basically right at that $2,000 mark for a good clean auto and a trading card, not the authentic, but the actual trading card graded with a 10 auto, go for pretty much dead on 2K. And I said, what's the absolute best that you could do on this? And he said, I could get to 2K. I'm not going to go any lower than that. He said, I've had a ton of people ask about it. I am not dropping below 2K. And this is really the difference on the buying and selling side. I am buying this card to add to my collection. This card is going to go in my case. It's going to go on display behind the desk, whatever. I am planning on owning this for a long, long time. The cards are rare enough. You don't mind paying the full comp when it's something that you actually want to own. When everyone's buying cards to make 10 or 15%, you have to fight to get a huge deal on it because you have to have I need room bro guy. But when you're selling cards that collectors want, it makes a huge difference because they're willing to actually pay your price. And I think that's a key thing you need to remember when you're buying cards. Keep in mind who is the end user for this card. Now, it might take you longer to sell something like that. If you pick up this Patrick Stewart auto or the Hugh Jackman, maybe not the Hugh Jackman the last because he's in the zeitgeist, the Favreau, whatever, that's not going to be a card you're going to sell at every single show you set up. But at some point in time, someone's going to run into that. And you still have to be fairly priced. Like I said, this guy was at $2,200. They comp for 2K. He wasn't at $4,000 with the card comping at 2K. $2,200 was a perfectly fair asking price on that card. If I bought one on eBay with tax and everything else, I would probably spend close to $2,200, if not more. So he says 2K. I say done. I hesitated. I didn't really even hesitate. Ideally, in a perfect world, I would have loved to have been at $1,800. I'm not going to argue over $200 on a card like that. We close the deal. I hand him the cash. He hands me the card. Shake hands, whatever. I turn to the side, and the guy that walked away from the table and said, "Let me think about it," looks at me and goes, "I was just looking at that card. I wanted to think about it a little bit longer. Nice buy." He's like, "You beat me to that one." He's like, "I had a feeling in my mind I should have just grabbed it, but I let it go," or something to that. I forget his exact words, but it was something to that effect. And he said, "Nice get on that one. That's a nice looking copy." And then, I did tell him, I was like, "Hey man, there's a couple other in the building. I've seen them. If you're really looking for one, you'll find another one. They're in here." And I pointed him to the one table that I was looking at before. And funnily enough, I went back to that table today and they had 3 or 4 of them. They had one left in the case today when I walked past it. So that card was definitely moving. So the biggest purchase of the show is, and then I peeled the price sticker off, but 1977 Star Wars, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, authentic auto 10. So not the trading card, got not all that nonsense that's been going around. Nice, big, bold. I'll give you a little close up here. Nice, big, bold, clean auto. Like I said, the card presents extremely well. Looks a little off center there, but it's a little left or right in the PSA holder. It's actually, you can see it's kind of just sitting a little bit that way, but it actually is centered pretty well. Yeah, the corners got a little, they're a little rounded off. They got a little gray on them, but nothing too crazy. Back also looks pretty good. Same thing. Corners, a little bit on the corners. That's really the big thing. There's no, I looked it over. There was no major creases, dents, tears, anything like that in it. So pick this up for 2K, and now I have a Mark Hamill auto on his rookie card, to say the least. So kind of a double whammy there. Get to kind of knock both those out. And like I said, part of this was, typically I am a Star Wars Stellar collector. There's not a great option for Stellar. I would prefer an on-card versus a sticker. So this seemed like a pretty good compromise. Super excited to knock this one off. And add this to the Star Wars Auto PC. Maybe I'll do an updated video on that, on kind of where that currently sits. Because I have a lot of the big ones. The last big one that I need of ones that I want to chase anyways is now Carrie Fisher. That will be the next big one. I've now set up safe searches for that card, and we'll see what we can find. There is one other one that I'm missing, but we'll talk about that in a second. You could see it sticking out right here. We'll get to that one as my last pickup. So I had this locked away. We were all good to go. Next one, and I'll just kind of show it. The James Earl Jones 2001 Topps on card auto. He has this one and I believe a 2004. The images are very similar. They both sell for pretty similar amounts of money, around $1,000, give or take. This is the second time I have negotiated on this card. I bought this card from Sharon, aka Black Jaded Wolf. I looked at this card in Chantilly in the spring, and I almost bought it at Chantilly, but just couldn't agree on a price. She had a sticker for $1,500. I think it was an old comp. She's had this card for a while because I've seen it in her showcase at multiple shows. There are not a billion. There's a handful of these listed on eBay at $1,500. With a, in a PSA 8 to 9-ish. I don't know how much an 8 to 9 matters on this card as long as the auto is pretty clean. The auto is not graded on this one, but it is actually a fairly clean auto. There's nothing super crazy with it. There's some very little teeny tiny like little streaks or whatever, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. Some of these do look pretty bad. I have seen some that are pretty jacked up. So I've done some dealings with Sharon. I don't want to say I know her personally or anything, but we have talked at shows in the past, and I just level with her. I said, Sharon, it's the best you could do on the Vader, and we were still pretty far apart. I said they're going for $1,000 on eBay. That's the last few comps. I said I'm a cash buyer right now. How close can we get? I'll pay strong. Because initially, I think she was at $1,500. I forget where we went back and forth on the first offer. She was like 12 something, I think, maybe 1250, 1300. And I said, I'll buy it right now if you could do a little bit better than that. So she countered back at 1100, and I accepted. So I actually paid over the last comp on a card. Oh my goodness, the world could end. Someone paid over comp for a card. Now, a little bit of this was, I already locked down the Hamill. I needed James Earl Jones. I had the juices flowing a little bit. I got the son. Now I got to get the father. It would be a cool thing to come out of the show, having both the Luke auto and the Vader auto locked up. I would be lying to you if that wasn't running around in the back of my head at this point. Also, part of it was, when you sell a bunch of stuff, it does feel like you're free rolling a little bit. You're like, okay, cool. Whatever. This is like free money. Do whatever I want with it. So she said 1100. Man of my word. I said, if you get close, I'll pay strong. She got close. I paid strong at 1100, a little bit over the last comp on the card. Once again, that's probably $1,000 card. That's close to what I'm going to pay for it on eBay, with taxes and shipping and everything else. So sometimes you got to pay strong for a card you really want. Could I have waited and held out, maybe got one later? Sure. I could have. That absolutely could have happened. But I wanted to get one of these locked away. And like I said, now I have father and I have son paired up. And now I can look to add the Carrie Fisher. And like I said, complete a lot of the big ones at that point. There are some other big autos that I don't have, but I don't know that I care. Would I like a Daisy Ridley auto at some point in time? Sure. Do I need a Padme auto and Natalie Portman? Probably not. They sell for astronomical sums of money. Do I need a Samuel L. Jackson one? It'd be cool to have a Samuel L. Jackson one, but I don't know that I want to pay the asking price on his Star Wars version of that card. It's like $3,000. I have the ones of and this has always been my goal, buy the autos of the characters that I care about the most, which was Han, Luke, Leia, Vader, from the OG cast of the main characters. I don't really care for a 3PO or an R2D2 auto or even a Chewbacca auto. And then I like a lot of the ones from the recent shows, Pedro Pascal, Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn, Ahsoka, Pedro Pascal, all that stuff. So that's where we currently sit. Maybe I'll do a show off of that in an upcoming video, but I've now droned on for 20 some minutes on 4 cards, but you got story time out of it, and that's what you're all here for. So those are my 4 pickups from the National: James Earl Jones, Mark Hamill, Kane Undertaker Duel, and Bret the Hitman Hart. Very, very content with those 4. Did not buy a single sports card. Oh, I should mention, I did sell some wax. I sold some Bowman Sapphire wax to David Adams on Sunday. And then I bought, I mentioned early in the video that I bought a couple boxes of Marvel cards. They had Marvel Platinum boxes on sale for $240 a box, which is about $60 under what they're going for. They're going for about $300 on eBay fairly regularly. They were running it as a show special, clearancing some stuff out. So I grabbed 2 of those. I am not planning on opening them. I just stashed them in the pile behind me. The Bowman Sapphire wax that I sold, I made a nice little profit on. I had it for a couple of years and it had gone up quite a bit. And I moved off of it to David Adams. They paid between high 70s and 85% on each box. I had 2 boxes from 2 different sets. But I was perfectly fine with it. I didn't have to deal with shipping it, didn't have to deal with eBay fees. Got cash and was able to buy a couple boxes and then stash the rest. So I built the war chest back up for Fanatics Fest. So I spent about probably about $4,500 with the boxes, maybe $4,600 on these 4 plus the 2 boxes that I got. But I also sold probably close to $4,500 in stuff. I sold 2K plus to a repacker, $1,500 at trade night, and then I got about $1,500 from David Adams for wax. So kind of ended up net neutral. I walked in with about $3K cash. I walked out with about $3K cash. Got rid of some cards that I didn't want anymore and picked up some cards that I did. It's a win in my book. That's all I got for you, boys and girls. Catch you on the next one. Peace.